Is Farming Simulator 22 still fun? The short answer is yes, absolutely. But if you wanted the long answer, then stick around. I'm gonna break it down for you. While I'm doing that, I'm gonna be doing some playing here, some planting and fertilizing on Calmston Farm in Farming Simulator 22, just so we can have some background ambiance. One of the most important things with any game are the graphics, and as there are tons of Farming Simulator games out there, we should compare graphics from game to game to see how they're improving, but the game should also be taken at face value. I think the jump from Farming Simulator 19 to Farming Simulator 22 in graphics was much bigger than the jump from 22 to 25. Both games had 3 years to work on it. They should have been an equal jump, but to me, 25 just looks a little better than 22. If you watch footage back to back, they look obviously a little different, but if you play the game, you play 22 and then you jump into 25 and play it, I don't notice a ton of a difference. Now, at face value, the game looks pretty good. The crops are decent, the mud looks decent, the tractors look really good, like the modeling of those. But some key fundamental parts of the game really let it down, like the textures. Instead of having three-dimensional proper models of the ground, so when you plow it or cultivate it, it actually digs the ground up. It's just a texture, it's a two-dimensional painting just applied over the top of the soil. If you drive your tractor over the dirt, it leaves tire tracks, but they're just planted, they're just textures planted there. There's many different areas in the game where these textures are used because they're so much easier to run than something like an actual proper 3D model. This used to be the case with trees and bushes and stuff. They used to just be a texture, but now they're a full three-dimensional model. You can actually see the twigs on a branch and stuff instead of it just being pasted there. Me personally, I would like it to look more realistic and run better, even if it was super hard for the console or the PC to run the game, but that's just me. All that being said, the game does look great for the most part, but yeah, there's just some issues that let me down sometimes. Another important thing with a game where you drive at all or do anything, really, is the physics of the game. And the Giants engine physics are not super realistic, but they're pretty fun. It just makes the tractors feel more like a toy that you're controlling than a giant, 40,000 pound piece of machinery. They just steer a little too easy. They accelerate faster than they should. Everything happens quicker. The door opens quicker. The implements unfold quicker. They lower quicker. They drive quicker through the fields than they should. You can literally go like 100 miles an hour through a cornfield in a car. But in real life, if you tried that, you'd probably flip and roll over, and the car couldn't even keep that speed up unless it was some beefed up off-road buggy or something. Now, this was fixed, it was touched on in 25, made a little better than it was in 22. Now the tractor's properly bogged down in the wet. They steer a little slower. You can feel the weight to it, and that's hard to explain using a controller or a keyboard, but it feels like there's a weight to it that there wasn't there in 22. The game physics aren't extremely important in this game, but it's a piece of it, and I feel like it should be talked about. I think they're good, but not great. Of course, the raw gameplay is probably the most important part of a game. Just the way it is, even if the graphics let it down, or the physics let it down. The meat on the bone, if you will, is the gameplay. What are you doing? Is it satisfying? Is it relaxing? Is it stressful? Is it stress-free? Is it strategic? Is it just fun? And you can't really explain it. I think Farming Simulator has a very confusingly addictive game model. There's something about us that just likes to farm. We may not realize it. Someone who doesn't play the game hears that you play it, they might be like, psh, that's weird. Like, who plays Farming Simulator? But if you actually sit down and play it, it's addicting, and it doesn't really make much sense. But I think it's super fun, and Farming Simulator 22 is no different. It does all the things that a Farming Simulator game should, and adds more features than the older games had. The main features it added was the production chains. You can now make grain flour, and you can make bread and cakes and cereal, and you can literally make furniture in a Farming Simulator game. You can make fabrics and then clothes. There's tons of stuff to do with the production chains, and forestry got expanded pretty well as well in Farming Simulator 22. But it's a farming game, you know? It's not Forestry Simulator, but they still have a pretty wide array of forestry machines. There's just so much to do. I've played the game over 1,600 hours, so you can definitely keep yourself occupied in this game a lot more than other games. For a long time, one of the things that has made Farming Simulator so successful is the modding community. The game is decent on its own, it has its issues, it has its flaws, but the modding community steps in and finds workarounds for the problems that giant software, the game developer, couldn't figure out or didn't want to spend the money on. Modders make tons and tons of machines, equipment, they make maps, they make pretty groundbreaking features and stuff in the game, and that's a great piece of the game. The sheer number of mods for FS22 is crazy to think about. There's more mods for Farming Simulator 22 than in any other Farming Simulator game that, to my knowledge. This means that if you want the best when it comes to graphics and solid game features while also having all of the mods, Farming Simulator 22 is the game for you. Farming Simulator 25 has some cool new features like ground deformation and better visuals with lighting and fog and weather and stuff, but Farming Simulator 22 looks really good and has tons of mods. One of the biggest examples of this would be Precision Farming DLC from Farming Simulator 22. It just really adds a lot to the game. So you've got soil types. Instead of everything being the exact same quality soil across the entire map, now there's zones of different types of sands and loams and clay. And you can purchase this information for the fields you own for honestly not terribly priced. But then it'll let you change the amount of the pH values with lime. You can change your nitrogen levels with fertilizer, and this changes for every type of crop. Different crops need a different amount of fertilizer or nitrogen, and the different soils also have different amounts that are required. So it really adds a different feature. It'll tell you the yield. Different soils and different things done to them will change the yield. If you add the correct amount of fertilizer, the correct amount of lime on the best type of soil, that's where you're going to see a really good yield. And also seed rates if you are planting. It just adds a whole variety to the game. And there's an environmental score thing that you can also look at. And that takes into account if the nitrogen is perfect, your lime value, your pH is perfect, how you're controlling the weeds, your soil sampling, and your tillage. So if you plow a lot or you cultivate more than once, your tillage score goes way down, whereas if you direct drill, it stays up there. You get your good value. If you're spraying herbicide on your weeds and you're wasting a lot of herbicide, you're going to get a bad score. But if you're using See and Spray, which is a feature that only sprays directly on the weeds, it saves like 97% of your herbicide. You're going to get a good score. Or if you use a machine like a weeder or a hoe to take out the weeds, you'll get a good score as well. It even goes as far as to analyze the amount of fuel you're using on the field, your vehicle maintenance you're using while you're working on the field, and it'll tell you how much money you've spent on the field, your costs, and your earnings. It's just such a deeper way of playing the game, and it adds a lot. And so far, that's not in FS25 yet. This didn't really make it a whole new game, but it really, really deepened an already great game. Now, switching gears a little bit, one of my biggest issues with Farming Simulator 25 is the lack of tractors and machines there were at launch. I feel like Farming Simulator 22 had way more tractors and more stone picking things and more rollers and just a bunch of different categories. I like the way the store is set up. The way that it's designed is so much more intuitive. It's easier to figure out where things are and where you need to get it. And maybe that's just because I played it for 3 years and Farming Simulator 25 is brand new, so I'm not used to it yet. But there are some key features that are not in 25, and it's really a letdown. The main one being the vehicles page. In Farming Simulator 22, you could scroll down to the vehicles, see every vehicle you own in different categories, and all the vehicles you lease. You can't do that in Farming Simulator 25. You have to go to a different menu to find the vehicles section, and it doesn't show you any pictures, or really, it's not good at telling you the information. It's just a list, and it's kind of hard to tell what's going on with it, to me. That's just frustrating, but that just, again, talks about how Farming Simulator 22 is maybe a little more simple and easy to understand if you've never played it before. The vehicle shop is one of the areas you'll spend the most time in the game other than playing it. Like, it's probably the menu you'll be on the most, so it's important for it to be good. Obviously, Farming Simulator 25 is the newest game. It's going to have the most features. It's added a bunch of different crops. The maps are the most intricately designed of any other game. The mods will be better than ever, but you gotta wait for it. That's the problem. You're gonna spend $50 on the game, and you just gotta wait months, even over a year, to get some of the really good mods and excellent features that will come out. There's not that many machines yet compared to how much there will be by the time the game is over with and they move on to the next title. As with every Farming Simulator game that's come out lately, there's tons of bugs, glitches, and it's just not very seamless. You can tell the game wasn't fully finished by the time it was put out. That's unfortunate, but tons of game companies are doing that now. They're rushing to get it out and working, and then they slowly work out patches and updates throughout the game's life to make it more stable. The problem is, though, a lot of people buy the game right when it comes out, and they just don't feel like the price was worth it because it's unplayable sometimes. And at the moment, I would find myself agreeing with those people. Until Giant Software can patch bugs, add new features, and the modding community steps in to right the wrongs that Giant Software made, I'll stick to FS22 for my leisurely playing. I still make videos on Farming Simulator 25, and I might on 22 as well. But when I play to relax, it's going to be on 22. Playing on the new game is just kind of frustrating. And 22 is simply a better game at this point. That's all I've got for now. Peace.